The automotive world is full of incredible feats of engineering, advanced technology, and cutting-edge design. But not every car that rolls off the production line is destined for greatness. In fact, some cars miss the mark so spectacularly that they become infamous, forever remembered for all the wrong reasons. We're talking about the vehicles plagued by poor design, constant breakdowns, disappointing performance, and marketing mishaps that left potential buyers bewildered. These are the automotive blunders that sent their manufacturers back to the drawing board, often with a sense of shame and a whole lot of unsold inventory. So buckle up, because today we're taking a deep dive into the world of automotive abominations. Get ready to cringe, laugh, and maybe even shed a tear as we explore some of the worst cars ever made. Our first automotive disaster takes us back to 1958 with the launch of the Ford Edsel. This car was supposed to be Ford's triumphant entry into the mid-price market. A masterpiece of marketing and design that would steal buyers away from GM and Chrysler. Instead, it became a cautionary tale of corporate hubris and the dangers of not listening to your customers. The Edsel's problems were numerous, but let's start with the design. Ford was going for a futuristic look, but they ended up with something that looked like it was designed by a committee of people who had never seen a car before. The most infamous feature was the horse collar grille, a vertical oval that looked like, well, you can use your imagination. But the Edsel's problems went far beyond its questionable aesthetics. It was plagued by mechanical issues, from faulty transmissions to electrical gremlins that seemed to multiply faster than rabbits. And the marketing? Let's just say that hyping a car as the Edsel before anyone knew what an Edsel was might not have been the best strategy. The result was a colossal flop. Ford lost an estimated $400 million in today's money on the Edsel, and the car became synonymous with failure. Dealers couldn't give them away, and the Edsel was mercifully put out of its misery in 1960 after just 2 model years. It's a stark reminder that even the biggest names in the auto industry can stumble, and sometimes the best thing to do is just admit defeat and move on. Now, you might think that the Edsel's legendary status as a flop would make it a rare collector's item. And you'd be right. Because so few people actually bought them, surviving Edsels can actually fetch a pretty penny at auction. Our next contender for the title of worst car ever needs no introduction. In fact, it's probably already seared into your memory banks, forever associated with words like hideous, awkward, and why. That's right, we're talking about the Pontiac Aztek. This early 2000s monstrosity is widely considered to be one of the ugliest cars ever produced, and for good reason. Its bulbous body, haphazardly placed angles, and excessive plastic cladding created a look that was both chaotic and strangely forgettable. It was like someone took a minivan, a station wagon, and a random assortment of geometric shapes, threw them into a blender, and called it a day. But the Aztek's sins went far beyond its questionable aesthetics. The interior was equally disastrous, with cheap materials, uncomfortable seats, and an overall design that screamed afterthought. And let's not forget the driving experience. The Aztek was plagued by a sluggish engine, poor handling, and a general lack of refinement that made even the shortest trips a chore. Despite all this, the Aztek has somehow managed to achieve a cult following in recent years. Maybe it's the so bad it's good factor, or perhaps people are starting to appreciate its unique brand of automotive ugliness. Whatever the reason, there's no denying that the Aztek has secured its place in automotive infamy. But let's be clear, the Pontiac Aztek is not a good car. It's a cautionary tale of what happens when automakers prioritize marketing gimmicks and questionable design choices over substance and common sense. Our next automotive misfire takes us to India, where in 2008, Tata Motors unveiled the Nano, a car with a grand ambition to bring car ownership to the masses. The Nano was marketed as the world's cheapest car, with a price tag of just $2,000. It was a noble idea, but unfortunately, the execution left a lot to be desired. From the outset, the Nano was plagued with problems. The most glaring issue was its safety record. The car lacked basic safety features like airbags and anti-lock brakes, and its flimsy construction meant that even minor collisions could have catastrophic consequences. In fact, several early models caught fire, leading to widespread concerns about the car's overall safety. But the Nano's problems went beyond its lack of safety features. The car was also plagued by poor build quality, with reports of shoddy materials, rattling dashboards, and parts falling off. And then there was the performance. the Nano's tiny engine struggled to propel the car even at moderate speeds, making highway driving a harrowing experience. The result was a commercial flop. Despite its low price tag, the Nano failed to capture the hearts and minds of Indian consumers. The car became synonymous with cheapness and poor quality, and Tata Motors struggled to shake off the Nano's negative image. Chapter 4. Lada Riva, a relic of the Soviet era. Our next automotive adventure takes us to Russia, the land of vodka, borscht, and the Lada Riva. This Soviet-era icon is a testament to the enduring power of simplicity, or perhaps more accurately, the stubborn refusal to embrace change. The Riva, originally known as the Vaz 2105, was first introduced in 1980 and remained in production, virtually unchanged for over 3 decades. The Riva was known for its ruggedness and reliability, able to withstand the harshest Russian winters and bumpiest roads. It was the automotive equivalent of a cockroach, seemingly indestructible and able to survive anything. But the Riva's simplicity was also its downfall. The car's design was hopelessly outdated, with its boxy shape and Spartan interior looking more at home in a Cold War-era spy film than on modern roads. And let's talk about that driving experience. The Riva was about as refined as a Soviet-era apartment block, with its agricultural engine, vague steering, and complete lack of any modern amenities. Despite its many flaws, the Lada Riva holds a special place in the hearts of many Russians. It was the car that many families learned to drive in, the car that carried them on countless adventures, and the car that they could always rely on, no matter how much abuse it endured. But nostalgia can only carry you so far. Chapter 5. Yugo, the car that became a punchline. Our next automotive train wreck takes us back to the 1980s, a decade known for its questionable fashion choices, synthesizer-heavy music, and the arrival of the Yugo on American shores. This Yugoslavian export was marketed as the answer to America's need for a cheap and cheerful car. Unfortunately, it turned out to be neither cheap nor cheerful. The Yugo's main selling point was its price tag. At just under $4,000, it was the cheapest new car you could buy in America. But as the old saying goes, you get what you pay for. And in the Yugo's case, what you got was a rolling testament to the perils of cutting corners. The car was powered by an anemic engine that struggled to reach highway speeds, and even when it did, it sounded like it was about to explode. And then there was the build quality. The Yugo was assembled with all the care and precision of a kindergarten art project. Panels didn't line up, parts fell off with alarming regularity, and the interior was about as inviting as a Soviet-era prison cell. Chapter 6. Smart Fort Woo Small Car, Big Disappointment. Our next automotive misadventure takes us to the world of microcars, those tiny vehicles designed for navigating congested city streets. And while some microcars have managed to achieve a certain level of charm and practicality, the Smart Fort Woo is not one of them. The Fort Woo, as its name suggests, is designed for just 2 passengers. And while its diminutive size might seem appealing for squeezing into tight parking spaces, that's about where its practicality ends. The Fort Woo is surprisingly expensive for what it is, costing about the same as a much larger and more practical car. The car is powered by a tiny engine that struggles to keep up with traffic, making highway driving a nerve-wracking experience. And then there's the ride quality. The Fort Woo's short wheelbase and stiff suspension mean that it bounces around like a rubber ball on any road surface that isn't perfectly smooth. Chapter 7. Chrysler PT Cruiser, Retro Styling, Questionable Execution. Our final automotive misfire takes us back to the early 2000s, a time when automakers were obsessed with reviving retro styling cues. And while some retro-inspired cars have aged gracefully, the Chrysler PT Cruiser is not one of them. The PT Cruiser, with its retro-inspired design that seemed to borrow heavily from a 1930s gangster getaway car, was a hit when it was first introduced in 2000. But the novelty of its styling quickly wore off, revealing a car that was plagued by problems. One of the PT Cruiser's biggest issues was its lack of space. Despite its tall, wagon-like design, the PT Cruiser offered surprisingly little cargo room. And then there was the performance. The PT Cruiser was offered with a variety of engines, none of which were particularly powerful or refined. But the PT Cruiser's problems went beyond its lack of space and lackluster performance. The car also suffered from poor build quality, with reports of rattling dashboards, flimsy materials, and parts falling off. Outrow lessons learned from automotive disasters. Well, there you have it, a glimpse into the often comical, sometimes tragic world of automotive misfires. These cars, forever etched in the annals of automotive infamy, serve as a reminder that even the biggest names in the business can stumble. But these automotive disasters are more than just punchlines. They offer valuable lessons for both automakers and consumers. For automakers, they highlight the importance of listening to customers, prioritizing quality over gimmicks, and never underestimating the importance of a good design. For consumers, they underscore the importance of doing your research before you buy, looking beyond flashy styling and marketing hype to find a car that meets your needs and won't leave you stranded on the side of the road.